It's better.
All right, let's start.
When did you start vaping? And through vaping, did you get to stop smoking completely?
So I started vaping a pretty long time ago compared to most vapors because I joined a company at the time called Plume in 2007 that was looking to introduce not really an e-cigarette, but a vaping device for tobacco. That company changed a few times their project, but eventually became Juul. So that basically I was the first employee at what is now Juul in 2007. So I started vaping, but that device was not very good. And I still smoked at the same time. So I was a dual user for about 3 years. And then finally, maybe 4 years, around 2011, I got my first open system, Ego style vape device. And literally I walked out of a new thing at the time, which was a vape shop, and I threw my cigarettes away and never went back. So yeah, I did both for a while, but I haven't smoked since 2011, I think.
What was your position? What was your job inside this company?
So I was the director of marketing and sales. We were only 3 people, the 2 founders and myself, for about 6 months, and then we slowly started adding engineers and some other people. The project, it was a really kind of strange device. It used little tobacco pods. Actually, you could still find that device in Japan under Plume technology. But it was kind of like a little hookah that fits in your pocket, not using liquids, proper liquids, and the nicotine delivery was pretty low.
Why and how did you start making e-liquids?
And I was vaping, and I went on a bicycle trip, not a motorcycle trip, but a bicycle trip to Europe. I started in Paris, and I cycled up to Amsterdam and then to Germany. And everywhere I went, I was always looking for liquid for my vape. So I was doing this trip to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I was like, well, I know how to make this stuff. I was familiar with flavoring and this kind of thing from my work at Juul. And I decided then and there that when I came back to the US, I would start a company to jump in and join the vape market.
Right. Okay. Who taught you to make e-liquids? Did you learn from yourself? Did you watch tutorials? It was like a try and error?
I had some background in flavoring, but I really was not familiar with the proper techniques of making e-liquid. So for me, I went to what we call a co-packing facility. So that's basically a factory that makes So basically the process was for me to express my vision on what we wanted to do, and then we would work together. Kind of like if you had a vision for to make some food, but you had a good chef, and he could make it for you. So I also had done some research and had many meetings before I went to the co-packer to try to find some unique or develop some unique flavors that I could use for cafe racers liquids. And I worked with a company in South Carolina that we developed our own proprietary naturally extracted tobacco. And I felt that was really important because almost all of the tobacco flavors on the market are artificial, and they're terrible. And I did not enjoy it at all. But I wanted to make a really good tobacco flavor. One, because I like beer, and I used to like to smoke. And when I drank beer, and I felt that vaping donuts or jelly, whatever, and beer did not go very well together. That we definitely needed a good tobacco, and it wasn't going to happen with the existing tobacco flavors from many of the bigger flavor companies, so we had to develop our own. So that was like the first step. And then when I went to work with the flavorist at the co-packer. We used that and then added a number of other flavors and experimented for about 6 months. And the process was funny because I would bring, every Friday I'd go to the factory in the lab and I would bring my favorite beer.
Yeah.
And we would drink a beer and vape together with the latest version, which eventually became Lucky 13. And whatever, the two had to go well together, like from the idea in the beginning. And we did one other flavor, which is called Peach Goozy, which is more of a fruity custard flavor. So we worked for about 6 months just on those two flavors, and we finally introduced them in May of 2015 in Miami at a World Vapor Expo there.
Yeah, Lucky 13, it's the most awarded e-liquid. For my personal point of view, is delicious.
Yeah, I mean, basically, this is still our best seller. It's the first liquid we introduced. Still accounts for maybe 40% of our sales.
Wow.
We also introduced a salt version called Salty Bastard Tobacco, which is very similar flavor. So it's creamy vanilla, toasted almond, caramel with a tobacco finish. So it's a little more almost like a dessert, but with a nice tobacco flavor. And you can tell the difference. It's natural tobacco, which is completely different than synthetic tobacco, which I can't vape it, to be honest with you. And there are a lot of smokers, when they start vaping, they try tobaccos and they're terrible, and either they don't vape or maybe they jump to like fruity flavors or something like that. So I felt that there was a good chance in the market if we could do an excellent tobacco, it would work, and it did.
Do you have to patent these recipes? For example, Lucky 13. Do you need to legally register to get a patent? Do you need to declare what's in the liquid?
Yeah, so a couple of things. You cannot patent a recipe. You can trademark your company name, of course. You can trademark the flavor name, like Lucky 13 in this case. Right. But the recipe, much like Coca-Cola, is kind of a secret. But if somebody can reverse engineer Coca-Cola, they can, they can't call it Coca-Cola, but they could sell something similar. So
right.
We feel that the way to protect our flavor, especially Lucky 13 and our tobacco flavors, was to own the flavor. So that tobacco flavor, the naturally extracted tobacco flavor, is actually many things in addition to the naturally extracted tobacco. And we have an exclusive on that flavor with our supplier, so no one can get that flavor. So that's one way to protect it. But I see actually recently on the Facebook group, the Argentina vape Facebook group, somebody posted that they said that they had the recipe for Lucky 13.
Yeah.
And I thought that was funny, and they were kind of close, but it's impossible because they would have the wrong tobacco. And some of the other ingredients were wrong. And it's flattering, actually. People say, hey, we cloned your flavor. That means that it's a pretty good flavor. And, my hat's off to them. That's fine.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I had for you. How does it feel that someone clones your e-liquid? Do you feel like betrayed, or do you feel like ego pumped?
Well, if it's a DIY, do-it-yourself, guy trying to clone a flavor, I don't see that as a problem. In fact, it's kind of a badge of honor. But when companies, and this has happened, put out fake products, meaning like fake labels and fake, liquid inside, this is a serious problem because it hurts it hurts the industry.
Yeah.
It's terrible to the person who buys it thinking it's real. And it also hurts our company because it's our reputation. We've taken some pretty strict measures, especially in China, because China, of course, is the king of copying. And that's, for a number of years, has been our biggest market outside of the US. So we use a special system there of a QR code that you scan the code. It takes you to a website, and then you could authenticate it. We don't use that in the US just because it was really complicated to do, and we didn't see a lot of copying here, although I know that Some has popped up like in Mexico and a few other countries, but we're pretty sure it came from China anyway. So that's kind of what we've done to prevent that. And I think in the end, we know that they can't clone our flavor, so it's pretty clear to people if they bought a fake one.
For me, one thing is to copy your recipe. Another thing is to counterfeit your e-liquid.
It's a big problem. I mean, it's not just for in the vaping industry, obviously for clothes makers and handbags and everything, drugs companies. So this is electronics. It's a major problem, multi-billion-dollar problem around the world, and companies do their best to protect their brand and protect their customers, but it's a problem that's not going away. So I think it's always a little bit of customer beware. You buy from trusted sources, you buy from trusted vape shops or online places that the person is going to be honorable and only sell authentic, whether it's hardware or e-liquid. So that's really important, I think, is the source that you're buying from. If it's just some guy in a Facebook group that you don't know, maybe it's not real. So you have to buyer beware.
This is, for me, one tricky question. What does it mean, handcrafted liquids?
So, I understand that it is a little bit of a tricky thing. I think for us, because we built our flavor from the ground up, we didn't just order some flavors from different companies and mix them together and say, hey, this is a new flavor. We actually built it from the ground up, meaning like from the very basic ingredients of the natural extracted tobacco to some of the other things in there. So that was a way for us to stand out a little bit. But it is a little bit confusing because actually in the end, it's all pretty much made the same once you go to your lab, whether it's at home or in a large scale production, it's put flavors in, mix them up, bottle it. We just really care about our product, and we care about the experience. In this case, with that flavor, we really designed it to go with a beer, but also like I also really like it with coffee.
Describe the company a little bit, please.
So we have kind of a different model. It's what I call a decentralized model. So my director of sales, he's in Montana. Our director of marketing is actually in Indonesia right now. He's in Bali. He chooses to live there. Our head of supply chain management is here in San Diego, but she also works from her home. We have a warehouse that it's called a fulfillment center. So we don't own the warehouse. We're one of maybe 100 products that they carry, that they warehouse. And when orders come in, it goes automatically to the warehouse and they ship it, so we can scale up or scale down. We don't have to pay warehouse staff when it's not busy, and when we get really busy, they just bring in more staff. So it's kind of a decentralized company that can scale up or scale down. And then our primary, they don't work for the company, but we have partners around the world. So when I say partners, there are our distributors, and they're really the guys who do a lot of the work on the ground. So in China, we actually are partners with them. We have an office of about 15 or 20 people. We have partners in Spain, Argentina, Colombia, all around the world. And my main job is to work with our partners to help introduce the brand and work with them on initiatives there to sell the product.
Let's talk about the brand itself. Why did you choose, or did you choose the name Cafe Racer? So
a Cafe Racer is a type of motorbike. It's a custom sport bike. And the story of Cafe Racer is kind of reminded me of the story of the vape industry. So after World War II, the guys who like to ride really fast, the bikes were shit because the war production in England, they produced reliable bikes, but they weren't very fast. They stripped down the bikes and they customized them themselves so they could go really fast, and they would race from cafe to cafe. It's two things. I love bikes. I like motorbikes, and I like regular pedal bikes a lot. And at first I was thinking of naming it Velo, like bike, but, it just didn't really feel like very strong. And in the vape industry, it's kind of a similar story. We had these cigalikes that came from China. It was a great idea, but didn't work so well. And then it was guys in the garage making the first mods, making the first coils, making the first RDAs. And it's a good story behind the brand and behind the industry, plus the imagery, the icon of the cafe racer bikes and the people that are really into cafe racer bikes is pretty cool. So it seemed to make sense.
Did you create the flavors thinking of your personal taste, or did you respond to a demand in the market?
Mostly personal taste, to be honest with you. So like Lucky 13 was because I really wanted something good to vape when I drank beer. And we actually made an even stronger version, kind of Lucky 13's bigger brother called Lucky Bastard, which is two times the amount of tobacco. That's actually my favorite now with the beer. And I just figured, if I could create something that I love, that there'd be enough other people out there that would love it too. I think some people try to chase flavor trends. For a while, it's like donut's the new custard, and then yogurt becomes the new donut, and then this becomes this. And if you're just chasing flavor trends, one, it's really hard to predict. Two, these trends, they come and they go, and then they collapse. So what happens is you sell quite a bit in the beginning, and then you have a warehouse full of a flavor that nobody vapes anymore. So I think it's best to really understand the market, but also try to be passionate about the flavor.
Do you need to follow like government guidelines to advertise products, to make them?
In the US, it's pretty tricky in that the regulations are changing quite a bit. When I first started, it was pretty much unregulated. We didn't have to apply for any special license. We didn't have to but we tried to follow the best manufacturing processes possible, meaning like using a clean room and making sure your ingredients were clean, taking out certain ingredients that could be potentially harmful, like diacetyl and some of these other things. In the US, we now have some regulations. First, it was teenage vaping epidemic in schools and things. And of course, nobody wants to see, teenagers vaping, but I think this got kind of a lot of hysteria that was probably a bit much, and so they banned flavors. So now you're technically only supposed to have tobacco. Coming up, actually it was supposed to be on Monday, May 11th, if you did not submit something called the PMTA, the pre-market tobacco something or another, you have to take your products off the market. And the cost per flavor is somewhere around $1 million to get the PMTA. It has to have clinical studies and just ridiculous amounts of paperwork and things.
Per flavor.
Fortunately, per flavor, yeah. So basically this would have meant that 95% of the companies in the US that aren't big tobacco, so maybe Juul, Naked, a few others could afford this, and everybody else is going to be wiped out. Because there will be so few products, all the vape shops will probably go out of business as well. Because if you only have 6 flavors and a couple of devices, what's the point of going to a vape shop? It will be primarily smoke shops and convenience stores, which would be really terrible, I think, for the industry. And we'll see smoking rates steady and maybe even increase, and vaping will be a bit harder to access.
Okay, yeah, that it's sad, very sad.
And probably a lot of black market. As you know, in Argentina, it's kind of, it's not illegal, but it's forbidden. And you have Facebook groups, and you've got all these WhatsApp groups. And so I don't think it will completely go away. I think that, people love flavors, and they like vaping, and they hate smoking. So anything that gets in the way of that, of course, people are going to go around, and it's kind of so We'll see. We also have an election coming up this year. We have a madman currently in office, and who knows what's coming next. So we just don't know.
Okay, okay. If you could just take one salt or e-liquid from your own brand, what will it be?
Probably this one here. So again, like I drink coffee in the morning, and I usually drink beer in the evening when I'm finished the day. So this, and I don't really use sub-ohm vape anymore. It's primarily because I have a 6-month-old daughter, and I was never really into clouds and all this stuff, but I like sub-ohm vaping because of flavor. But unfortunately, It creates kind of these big vapor clouds, and because I've got a little girl in the house, I just don't really feel comfortable, chucking big clouds around the house. Whereas with, this is a pretty good device. The flavor, I think, from all the pod mods, this one, the Orion Q, produces probably the best flavor that I've seen. And this is the Salty Bastard Tobacco, 25 milligrams. It works great for me. Flavor is good. Satisfaction is really high. And I don't, make big clouds around the house and get yelled at by my wife.
Okay. Do you have favorite liquids or salts from other companies?
To be honest with you, I haven't vaped anyone else's liquid in a couple of years, so I don't really have any other favorites. We actually did some new flavor development for our pod system. It's called Moto.
Yeah.
And we came up with a whole range of pretty interesting flavors for this. We have berry ice, which we also do in open system stuff, but we have tropical tea, which is like a mango tea. We've got a whole range of flavors, and we have another like 16 that we did just for the Chinese market, things like oolong tea. And so that was really fun. And so now I have like so many different flavors from our own company. I just kind of bounce around and play with some of the fruit flavors. And when it comes to tobacco, there's only one, so it doesn't matter.
Right. Okay. What is the next step in Cafe Racer? What is coming new?
Well, it's really hard to say what's coming new because right now as an industry, we're kind of in survival mode. COVID-19 basically closing down most of the shops, very few exceptions around the world. And then for us, we also have this PMTA deadline in September. So we would love to continue to innovate. This is what this industry has always been about: flavor innovation, hardware innovation. For us, we know that we cannot change what's going to happen in the US on our own. We tried to band together to fight some of the legal things, but it's a tough battle. From Cafe Racer specifically, we're sold in 42 countries. So if we have a problem in one country, it doesn't kill the business necessarily. I would say that right now, only about 30% of our sales are in the US, so we could survive. I think what we want to do is focus region by region. So one of our best regions is actually South America. We are in Colombia. We work with Vapor Kingdom there. They've got like 28 stores. We are in Ecuador. So that region is very interesting for us. I think customers really like our flavors and the brand there, and there's not a lot of regulation. Maybe Argentina will also wake up one day and they will allow vaping. We'll see.
Yeah.
And I think the big question mark is Brazil. If Brazil, which has almost 300 million people, would change their laws, you would see that's a huge market with a lot of people smoking, and there's a lot of room for, I think, companies to go there. So we'll see. It's kind of a wait and see, like everything in this world today. Hope that it will get better. Prepare for the worst.
Okay. You mentioned you export your products to 42 countries.
Yeah.
What is the top 5 selling of them?
So
you mentioned China.
Yeah, China, Spain, France, Netherlands, and if I want to just put a group of South American countries together, like Argentina, Paraguay, Colombia, if I just kind of group those, I know that you're all very different countries, but kind of group region, I would say that's it, definitely in that top 5.
Okay, okay.
Chile also. We do pretty well in Chile. And there's also kind of gray. It's not illegal, but it's not really legal. And they have shops, but they don't, it's the same story. And hopefully things will change in South America in the coming years.
What is your advice to us? How we can join forces to get this legally approved by the government?
Stop smoking and start vaping, and talking about the health benefits of vaping over smoking. So I think if you approach it that way, and it's not about your right to blow clouds in a restaurant or something like this, it's actually access to a tool that will help save lives. And especially in countries where you have socialized medicine, so that everybody is covered, but it saves the government money. And that's why you see in the EU, especially the UK, if you watch that Netflix documentary, the government is 100% behind vaping. Why? Because they save money. They get less sick people. So I think that's probably the most important, and to link up with professionals from the medical community. And in this world, money drives everything. So the other enemies that you will face, potentially big tobacco, unless they change and start going into vaping. And what we face, and it's not a public enemy, but we know it's one of the enemies, is big pharma. Because when people get sick, big pharmaceutical companies make a lot of money. So I think they're kind of our silent enemy, working behind the curtain, so to speak, to try to keep regulations such that vaping is pushed down. And it's disguised as, parents for vaping-free kids and all this stuff. But in the end of the day, we know that they are some of the biggest opponents. So really focus on the science, keep it to science. And they've done such a good job in the UK with the study, the 95% safer study, which came from the government, not a privately funded. So more studies, more science. And eventually, I think clearer heads will prevail, and that they'll see the light. And again, save money is another way to really position this for countries, especially with socialized medicine. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for your advice. Can you describe the process to achieve an award from events like Vapor Ground?
Oh, so you just, the award thing is it's kind of hit or miss. You submit your best flavor, the flavor you think is going to have the best chance to win. I think for us, like I said, there weren't very many good tobaccos. And some people like artificial tobaccos. It's got a really strong, pipe-like flavor. But for the most part, so I think we won a lot of awards because there wasn't much competition or innovation in the tobacco flavor space. But we also won one for Daily Grind, our coffee flavor in Spain. And it's kind of up to the judges. Different places are going to be different. Different judges may have different tastes. So you just keep trying and try to do your best with your flavors. I don't know if we're going to be seeing any vape expos for years, actually. I think between the industry collapsing in the US, regulations, and now, of course, COVID-19, it's going to be a while before you see any vape expos. Unfortunately, we were really hoping to go to come back to Paraguay and even visit Argentina this year. I don't think that's going to happen, but maybe when we get to 2021, things will start to change.
Okay. Have you tried Argentinian e-liquids?
I haven't. When I was in Argentina, I was only meeting with our distributor in Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
And I did visit one or two shops, kind of like these, underground shops where you have to go
off the record.
Off the record, where you have to go in an elevator up to the 10th floor, and then the door opens and suddenly there's like a whole vape shop there. And When I was in Paraguay, of course, your next door neighbor where vaping is legal and it's quite big there. Many of the brands that I saw there were mostly from US with some local brands. So in every country now, you're starting to see more local producers, and that's important because they keep the price down. So in countries where people have less disposable income, if a bottle of 60 ml bottle costs, $20 and you're only making $50 a week, you can't spend half your income on this. It's impossible. I mean, you can, but it's not really okay. So I think it's good to have local producers. They also find local flavors that are unique to that area. So, I know in Argentina you have some unique things like your mate, right? So maybe that's a good flavor to do. I don't know, but you know what I mean? Like there's certain fruits and things that certainly in China, of course, everyone knows that Chinese have very unique flavors. So we actually work with a flavoring company there specifically for that market in addition to our global flavors. And I think it's really good that people, it keeps it local. And especially now, and we can see that the supply chains get really messed up and some for many reasons, and it's good to have a local supply chain.
This is the funniest question. In a worst case scenario, zombies break loose. You can grab one mod and one e-liquid or salt. What would you choose?
Right here. That's the easy one.
Okay.
Salty Bastard Tobacco, 25 mg, and this little guy here, which is again great flavor, good battery life. I just need a lot of pods. Can I get a box of pods? Then I'm okay for like a year because these pods they're really good, but they last about a week. So yeah, and they're kind of expensive. It's like almost I think it's like $5 for a pod, so it's kind of expensive.
Did you try the Argentinian asado? It's like a barbecue.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. No, I've tried it a number of times in Buenos Aires. Also, the guys in Paraguay claim that they have a better one. So they did it at their house when I was there. That was really good. I love Argentinian beef. It's amazing, and the whole barbecue thing there. So I would love to come back for more. And also the wine, pretty good wine there.
That's it for me.
Marcus, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. I want to say a big shout out to all the folks there in Argentina. I hope everybody stays safe, and hopefully we can come visit you guys real soon. Saludos dripedos. Is that right?
It's great. Cool. It's great.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Marcus. Okay, take care.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.